So, hello and welcome to the Masters in AI Ethics and Society 2025-27 information session. Before we start, a reminder that this session is being recorded and will be sent to everyone who has registered for the event afterwards, as well as being made available on the ICE YouTube channel. My name is Jonathan Lippman, and I'm Head of Academic Centre Administration at the University of Cambridge Institute of Continuing Education, also known as ICE. On the panel today, we are delighted to have Dr. Henry Shevlin, who's the Education Director at CFI, Dr. Garfield Benjamin and Dr. Johnny Penn, who are the co-course directors on this MST, and two of our current students, Angie and Jenny. You'll be hearing from all of them shortly. Can I have the next slide, please? So this session is part of our broader MST Open Week, and we'll be running a variety of online sessions where you can find out more about our part-time masters at ICE. You might want to consider signing up for our Meet the College session on Thursday, the 14th of November at 7:30 p.m. As well as live sessions, you can find additional video resources on our website with information on funding options, the application process, college membership, interview preparation, and more. And don't worry if you miss any of these sessions or you're unavailable to attend live, you can watch the recordings, which will be available on our website 24 hours after each event. Next slide, please. So ICE was founded over 150 years ago in 1873, and we're very proud to say that we were the first university-led continuing education provider in the world. Today, we offer a wide range of courses to predominantly adult learners, covering everything from architecture to writing for performance. We also act as the admitting body for all Master of Studies MST courses within the University of Cambridge. Next slide, please. So in today's session, we'll take you through what you can expect from the MST in AI Ethics and Society, including the module content and assessment, the dissertation proposal you'll need to submit, entry requirements, and the teaching style. You'll hear what it's like to be studying on this course, and we'll explain what kind of support is available during your application. We've got some time reserved at the end of the session to answer a few questions, but you can also type your questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen at any point during the presentation, and we'll do our very best to answer as many as possible. So I'll hand over now to my colleague, Dr. Henry Shevlin.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you all for joining. We're thrilled to have so many of you here to learn about the course. So I'm Henry Shevlin. Jonathan gave me a very nice introduction there. I'm the Associate Director of Education at CFI. And also joining us on the call here today are Dr. Johnny Penn, an Associate Teaching Professor and course co-lead on the MST, and Dr. Garfield Benjamin, also a course co-lead, and our teaching fellow, Dr. Jedrzej Nicholas. So we're delighted to all be here to tell you a little bit about the MST. Next slide, please. So the MST in AI Ethics and Society is a partnership between CFI, the Leverhulme Centre for the Future of Intelligence, University of Cambridge's main AI ethics policy theory think tank, and the Institute for Continuing Education, which Jonathan has already described. Next slide, please. What the course aims to do is give you the skills, knowledge, and connections to help tackle the really big issues in AI ethics. Topics like privacy, surveillance, justice, fairness, algorithmic bias, misinformation, big data, responsible innovation, and more. You'll cover a huge amount of material across all the most essential issues, some of which have been debated for decades, some of which no one had even thought of until the last few years, and put you in a position where you can address questions like how you can tell if an AI system is trustworthy, how to go about assessing the negative impacts from a new technology, how to implement best practices regarding things like privacy, data security, and management of personal data, and how you can design processes of responsible innovation for your organization. I should clarify that this course, although we will be touching on all these issues, is a broad spectrum course that explores these issues from a wide variety of angles, not just the narrow technical angles and not just abstract philosophy, but everything in between, spanning a huge range of disciplines. Next slide, please. So, to give you a snapshot of what the course will do, it will give you rigorous knowledge and skills to enable you to consider AI ethics issues within your sector and organization. And you'll be working online and in person with fellow students from across fields, from across the world, probably of all different ages, backgrounds, and nationalities in areas such as machine learning, algorithmic bias, applied ethics, data privacy, AI governance and policy, history, critical design, and many more. So that's a brief overview of the course, and I will now pass on the torch for the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Henry. So just to give you an overview of the structure of the program and the kind of topics that we'll be covering. As Henry mentioned, it's a multidisciplinary course, and that's reflected in taking in each module a different angle on these issues. So it's a 2-year course, and it's made up of 4 modules and then the dissertation. So the 4 modules make up half the course, and the dissertation makes up the other half. Now, across the first year, you'll do 3 modules. Firstly, looking at the nature and history of AI. This module is aimed at challenging some of the assumptions that we tend to hold about what AI is, where it's come from, what other aspects of society it's linked to. So you'll be tracing different routes that AI development has taken, not just technical, but social and historical, and all these other perspectives as well. We're running this module at the moment, led by Dr. Johnny Penn, and the students that I've spoken to have been talking very exuberantly about all the new perspectives that they've been encountering. Then moving on to Module 2, this is led by Dr. Henry Shevlin. This is called the Ethics and Societal Challenges, and it's more, if the first module is taking a historical perspective, this is more a philosophical perspective. So here you'll be introduced to a number of different philosophical ways of thinking and a number of the issues that covers. As Henry mentioned, things like privacy, things like consciousness, all these different aspects that give us the tools to ask some of these big underlying questions about what AI is, what it could be, what it should be. Then in term 3, the final module of the first year, you'll look at AI governance. This is led by our colleague, Dr. Jedrzej Niklas. And this takes, on the one hand, it is focused very much on policy and the sort of legal and political systems that surround AI and regulate it, but it also takes governance more widely. So it'll cover things like activism. It'll cover things like governance within organizations and self-governance, and get into the broader debates that surround which forms we choose in which context, and who gets to have a say in how AI is developed and what kinds of AI are developed. So that rounds out 3 different approaches that you encounter in the first year. Then at the start of the second year, we have theories and methods, which is led by myself. And this is more situated within science and technology studies, which itself is a fairly broad interdisciplinary sort of topic. But here we'll look at different ways of approaching these key questions that we'll have raised throughout the course so far. And this module also acts as a kind of hinge point between the modular learning and your own dissertation project. So we'll look at various different theoretical positions, again, broadening our different perspectives, seeing what other angles we can take when we're trying to grapple with these issues, and looking at the most up-to-date research in the field to see how people are trying to do that in a practical sense, what methods we can take forwards, what methods you can take onwards to try and uncover these issues and answer these questions. So all this sets you up for your dissertation, which takes up the remainder of the final year. And this is your own individual project. Actually, could we go to the next slide, please? So this is a big piece of work that's your own choice of topic. So you'll develop it with advice from the academic team, and you'll be assigned a dedicated supervisor who is really an expert in the exact area that you're looking for. And we look widely across the university to find that. So some of them will be people from the course team. Some of them may be other colleagues at Center for the Future of Intelligence or the broader institute that that's part of. But also we look at colleagues in history, in philosophy, in sociology, in business, in law, whatever the specific project needs. So this is a big piece, it's 15,000 words, and it's submitted right at the end of the course. And it brings together everything you've learned so far and applies it to some real concrete problem. So as part of the application, because this forms a big part of it and it's where the course is headed, you do need to submit a 500-word research proposal. And this is your chance to outline one potential topic. You're not held to it. It's non-binding, just to give us an idea of how you can raise a question and how you can outline a useful way of looking at it. So this needs to include your central research question or title, a brief summary of where the field is at. In the eventual dissertation, we call this a literature review, but really it's just what is the current state of research, the current state of knowledge in that field. And from this, any gaps that you might be filling in, any original contribution you might be made, or an indication of one new insight you can provide from the research. That might be a new perspective on the issue, it might be a new angle, a new method, combining different approaches. It doesn't have to be something completely new, but it's making some progress, some contribution to the field, because this is still an evolving field, and the development of this course and you as the student cohort are part of this developing field. It really is that on the edge of knowledge and understanding. And you should also include some of the references to relevant literature. So it is worth looking at what you're aware of currently. Obviously, we'll look at a whole range of literature across fields on the course as well. But it gives us an indication of how you identify an issue and how you can approach a systematic way of addressing it. And this is something that we'll also look at for shortlisting, and we'll pick it up in the interview with you as well. Next slide, please. So there's all these different ways of learning, all these different segments of knowledge that we're going to use to approach AI ethics in society. But in terms of what you actually need to produce as we go along this journey together, there's an essay for each module and then the dissertation. So the first half of the course is the modules. Module 1, the history one, is a 2,000-word assignment. This is worth 8% of the overall mark. Then the remaining modules are 4,500 words each, and each one is worth 14%. And that together makes up 50%. That's the first component of the course. And then as long as you pass from that, you go on to the dissertation, and that's worth the other 50%, and that's 15,000 words. So it is a big project that allows you to really get into the depth of your particular chosen issue. And it also helps build independence, whether this is for you to take on to your ongoing career or future career, or whether it's to pursue into further research and study. So the whole aim of the course is to really prepare you with these critical analytical research skills to address these pressing issues in society. And I'll hand over now to my colleague, Dr. Johnny Penn.
Thanks, Garfield, and hi, everyone. I really enjoy these sessions because many of you I will meet out in the world afterwards. So even though we're speaking virtually now, maybe we'll meet one day beyond this. Who takes this course? Mostly it is working professionals, not exclusively. We have a range of participants. I would say maybe 40% come from the tech sector, 40% from surrounding industries, law, policy, things like that. And then the remainder include, young people straight out of an undergraduate degree, or an artist or documentary filmmaker we have in our pool this year. And we kind of aspire to a little microcosm of society, that the cohort itself is reflective of the diverse set of stakeholders that are interested in AI ethics. And so you gain something from us in the course, but you also certainly will gain from each other a lot. And that's because this is a very multifaceted conversation. And what you'll find is in your peers, you'll have legal advice or technical advice or policy advice or, more perspectives from the humanities. And inevitably, as the 2 years go on, you build nice relationships, make friends. Often we see some long-lasting friendships, and get to kind of build your professional and social network. It's hard to make friends in your adult years, so if nothing else, maybe you can make some nice friends on the course. But you'll get more than that. Okay, the next bit to speak to is the course. The degree is granted from the philosophy department, and the degree itself is not purely based in that discipline. I'll speak to that in a minute, but it is a rigorous course. It is not a 2-month kind of checkbox exercise that you could do online, through some other service. This is the University of Cambridge. We aspire to live up to that, to the reputation of this institution each year, and to kind of approach the course like a laboratory where you are with us in a horizontal plane, and we're all kind of experimenting together with what can be done, and we will share our knowledge and you can share your experience, and together we can figure out how to make this go well. And I guess as it points to there, we will leverage our collective knowledge. If you could go to the next slide for me, please. What is this course? What does this course not do? It's not an MBA. It is not, doesn't need to be, nor would we want it to be an MBA. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't engage business communities. We have speakers come in from tech companies and finance industry and whatnot to participate, but it's a humanities degree. It is based in the rich traditions that we have been trained in. And there are contributors from the Judge Business School and things like that, but it's not squarely within that setting, which would kind of change the focus of what is taught. It's not, as I've kind of alluded to, just a kind of, simple course that you can just zip through. I think that would be a disservice to the subject and a disservice to your expertise or want for expertise if you're earlier in your career. We try to make it something you can chew on, and something you can really feel yourself growing as you learn about and participate in. It's not delivered solely online. It is required by the university that you be in person in Cambridge for each of the residential weeks. And those weeks are very intense and quite tiring, we hear from students, but after a series of them, students get more and more comfortable, broaching difficult conversations with each other about academic matters and the like. So there is a kind of nice benefit from the experience of being in person, and you get to see the University of Cambridge, which is a very beautiful place and has much to offer in terms of its kind of student life. And it's not written here, but I can say, because it comes up in the Q&A sometimes, you are a full-fledged member of the university. This is not a kind of partial entry. You are in the core, you are in the university and have certain rights, entitlements due to that. We are not a course that is limited strictly to tech. We have a lot of people ask, do I have the right background? Should I, am I right for this? Let us hear from you about what you want to do with this degree, as Henry and Garfield have spoken to in different measure. Help us see into what this would allow for you in your future, not just kind of in your professional career, but what is kind of gnawing at you? What intellectual curiosities do you have? And as I said, we have people come in who are documentary filmmakers or are teachers in a high school or from other areas who put forward a convincing case for why this would be a really good use of their time and ours. And lastly, it is not squarely a data science and machine learning degree. You could do that elsewhere. And we talk about technical issues. Technical issues are kind of looming over a lot of what is discussed, but there is no expectation of technical expertise to take the course or pass the course. But there have been instances of students doing, side learnings in this area and coming out with a bit of competency if that's something that's very important to you. And if you are technical, we of course have technical supervisors who can support you during a dissertation or something like that. Okay, next slide, if you would. Time commitment. How will you do this? How will you manage it? On average, we estimate and kind of plan for commitment of about 8 hours per week. That might be, 1 hour for a recorded lecture that you can watch asynchronously. You can watch it at whatever time you like. It's posted on our online portal. and then optional 90-minute conversation on Fridays where you can meet with the professor and talk about with your classmates as well, the material covered, what you made of it, questions you had, things like this, and learn from each other's experience as well. And you also have some one-on-one time each term with your advisor. So 8 weeks, 8 hours per week during term. Terms in Cambridge, you can Google those. They're easily available online. And then at the start of each term, we have and actually one term is changing, but whatever's posted online is trust that. But primarily it is the start of term. You come together, you have a 40-hour week of what is called the residential. And it is signaled here that it is the beginning of the week or the beginning of the term. And that is a kind of send off to then do the rest of the term online with new lectures posted each week. The structure of terms, Garfield's already given an overview, but the dissertation phase is what in Cambridge is called a kind of research degree. It's you're taught in the first year. In the second year, you are encouraged to learn, with the skills that we've given you, to practice your research skills, practice your ability to craft a literary or lit review, things like this. So I guess the thing I'll say about the dissertation portion of this program is that if you come into this course with a very niche issue, something you really want to work on, you don't need that. That is not a prerequisite. But if you have that, the dissertation is a very good vehicle for that, and you can put 8 hours into it or more, depending on what your priorities are. But the expectation is about 8 hours a week. Okay, I will end there and pass back to my colleagues. Or to our students, rather, Jenny and Angie.
Hi, everyone. Angie, do you want me to go first?
Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here and share a bit of my insights as to what it's like to be a student on this program. For me, this program has been really transformational, I think both personally and professionally. I come from the technology industry, and I found it provides a historical and theoretical grounding that's rarely accessible in professional settings, yet it's also incredibly transferable. I personally applied for the course because over the last decade, I've increasingly been building go-to-market programs and selling solutions that include features that are described as artificially intelligent. And I wanted to gain a deeper knowledge of the area. I also wanted to connect my industry knowledge and experience with academic thought. My academic background was originally in the social sciences, not computer science. I had this kind of sense of unfinished business after I finished my original degree, but I could never quite find a course that combined my interests, aligned with my career, matched my academic background, and really allowed me to continue working full time until I found this MST. I think one of the most exciting aspects has been reconnecting with academic thought, entering a space where I can engage with emerging research that frankly wasn't even on the horizon when I was at university a few decades ago. At first, I think it was a steep learning curve, but the quality of the teaching and also the access to thought leaders in AI has been invaluable, and it's kind of really built my confidence. Overall, it's been a bit like jumping off a cliff and trusting that a future version of yourself will catch you. And that sense of accomplishment when you do is incredibly rewarding. The structure of the course keeps you on a really rigorous path, but there's flexibility to dive into areas that really resonate with you in the assignments and, of course, again, in the dissertation. I found the process of writing and researching for the assignments each term really fulfilling. I think pursuing this course as part of a personal but also a career progression interest, but that hasn't been aligned to a corporate objective or commercial goal, has been liberating. I think engaging with topics like AI are so relevant and working across the disciplines really sharpens your mind, and it filters naturally into everyday work and life generally. It really enriches the way that you see the world around you. The cohort is really awesome. It's really diverse, all different age groups, all different professional backgrounds, and everyone sort of finds their own groove. I definitely started more reserved, partly because my job demands that that I do a lot socially, and I'm just kind of more acclimatized to smaller groups in general. But there's lots of pub trips and restaurant visits on the residential weeks in the evenings. I probably prefer to do things like yoga, go swimming and things like that. And there's a group of us that do kind of more embodied activities in the evening after you've been doing a lot of intellectual work during the day. Finally, probably workload. It's a bit like polyfiller. It will expand to fit the time you can give it. I find such joy in it that I often dedicate more time than is strictly necessary. But we're all adults on this course with complex lives. And, you know, for me, the last year has brought lots of challenges, real life challenges. And I found that studying has been a retreat for me, and that it's actually made me more productive at work and more balanced overall. The time that I carve out for study feels like a valuable investment, and one that in turn helps me carve out a clearer, I think, work-life balance. Angie?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. So Jenny and I are on the same cohort. We're in the same class, and it's a real joy to be part of the same group. Actually, I think we're very, very lucky in that way. So in some ways, in similar ways to Jenny, I came very much looking for this course, and when I had a very particular question in mind, that's about 6 years old. This course didn't exist, and I had been waiting for this course to be developed and was delighted when it finally came. And so I came here wanting to explore a very specific question that lies at the intersection of psychology and philosophy. And I've been very grateful to have the opportunity to explore that question, and I'm looking forward to exploring that question in my dissertation. But I suppose through this course, I've also gained a much wider application of some of the socio-technical tensions that AI occurs within, the historical context and challenges, many of which are far from new, which Johnny will tell you in the first module. And recently, I've had the opportunity to understand, or at least a way to understand and grapple with the governance of AI in ways that I would never have had the confidence or opportunity to explore before. And I've been grateful for that. I would say that the opportunity to learning is very well suited to a subject that's ever evolving. While there are textbooks, there aren't anywhere near as many textbooks on AI or the ethics of AI as you'll find in subjects like psychology, philosophy, etc. And so here what we have is the benefit of a well-established pedagogy through the fundamentals of these modules, while also experiencing any real-time evolution through the weekly classes, our discussion groups, either from the course directors themselves or the class itself, because we have so many different people from so many different industries that we get to learn from on a weekly basis as this industry evolves. The community itself, very much as Jenny mentioned, and as Henry, Garfield, and Johnny have mentioned already tonight, is invaluable, both in terms of the knowledge that they bring, but also those connections. Many, as Johnny said, friendships that are lifelong friendships that I've been grateful for forming, but also in terms, as Jenny said, of bringing us and being exposed to some leading thinkers globally. And that's in terms of our actual lecturers, as well as thinkers outside of Cambridge that we're exposed to and we get to connect with afterwards, that you just wouldn't be able to be exposed to, I would say, in many other programs. That really is such a privilege. In terms of the workload, I would say very much like Jenny, it does feel like it's almost indulgent, the amount of time that we sometimes spend on the work, not because you have to, but because you truly want to. And so in terms of the essays are created, or at least each module is created in such a way that you can truly find something that interests you and stretches you. And I think that's probably the key to it, is diving deep into something that is exciting, because that's why you chose this program. And similarly with a dissertation, you have the opportunity to do something that you truly love. I think lastly, the one thing that I would share is why I chose this MST or this program over others. And it was the opportunity to focus deeply on AI ethics specifically, as opposed to something like practical ethics, of which AI was only one component. And the opportunity to do that with a cohort where we were all following that same journey with each other and truly broaden our horizons together was a unique opportunity. And being able to do that both residentially and online is something that has been well worth the investment in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny and Angie. Could we have the next slide, please? Okay, so I think we will hand back to Johnny or Garfield now. Or if not, I'm very happy to take this slide. So in terms of applications, the process on the left outlines the sorts of documents that you'll need to submit with your application. That would include things like a language certificate, if applicable. You'll need to send a personal statement. That's really very, very important. The personal statement is really where it's your opportunity to say what motivates you to take this course and what you're looking to get out of it. And I've already seen some of the questions in the Q&A saying, what can I do to improve my application, or what are you looking for? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for you to kind of really say what excites you and what motivates you to take this course. We'll need a couple of references. If you don't have academic references because you've been out of academia for a while, that's not a problem. We will accept 2 professional references. We would just ask that they come from professional emails, not from personal emails. You'll need to provide a sample of work, which is outlined on the website. And of course, you'll also need to outline the dissertation proposal that you're thinking about looking for. And in terms of what we're looking for, well, Johnny stressed already, it is very, very interdisciplinary. So we're not looking for people from a particular background. We want interest in the subject matter. Tell us what you maybe have done to date that's of relevance in your either professional or your academic experience or achievements. Tell us why you think you can flourish at Cambridge, and don't be put off by the fact that we are Cambridge. We would very much encourage you to apply. You might not have studied for a long time. You might not have studied at this sort of level before. We do have a lot of students who are successful in their applications who haven't studied at one of the best universities in the world, and we're very open to applications. Go with the next slide, please. So in terms of the college partnerships, I'm sure most of you will be aware that the Cambridge is a collegiate university. There are 31 different colleges. Specifically on this MST, we work with the 4 colleges that are listed on the screen now. So in no particular order preference: Homerton, Lucy Cavendish, Hughes Hall, and St Edmunds colleges. What I would say is that all 4 of those colleges are very comfortable and familiar with having mature adult learners. So, they're not just full of 18 to 21-year-olds. They're very comfortable with students who've come to learning later in life. When you apply, you can state a preference or, a top 2, top 3 if you wish to, or you can just leave it and we will allocate you to a college. We'll do our very best to allocate you to your first or your second choice. But because we've got a limit of numbers at each college, and to make sure we have an even distribution, we can't guarantee that you'll get the college that you've asked for. Note that although there are 27 other Cambridge colleges, it's not possible to apply for one of those colleges unless you have a pre-existing affiliation there. That would normally mean, for example, you've already done a degree at one of those colleges. What does it mean to become a member of one of these 4 colleges? Well, it grants you the same level of support as being a full-time university student. You'll get access to standard college resources, facilities, amenities. You'll also be allocated an individual college tutor, and that person's responsible for your welfare and for pastoral support, and they'll be in touch with you, throughout the duration of the MST. Your college will also confirm practical arrangements such as how you get your university card, how you join the university through the matriculation event, and how you celebrate by attending a graduation event. And it's also worth noting that you become a member of whichever college you join for life. Could I have the next slide, please? So the key dates to bear in mind, well, you can see there when the course starts and when it finishes. You've got the months when the residential teaching blocks take place in Cambridge. They each last for 1 week, Monday to Friday. You could generally expect to be in class from 9 to 5 each day. There may be some social events taking place in the evening, but you will absolutely need to come to those in person, and you will need to make sure that you can get time off work to come physically to travel to Cambridge for those. The application deadline of the 28th of February 2025 is a hard deadline. And I'm saying that now. We will not be able to accept any late applications. So please don't leave it to 11:58 p.m. on the 28th of February. You may well miss the deadline. Once the applications have been submitted, they're reviewed independently by members of the core academic team, and that's done on a gathered field basis. So in other words, no applications will be reviewed before the deadline of the 28th of February. And once that deadline's passed, all of the applications are looked at. So that means that, unfortunately, we are not in a position to give you an indication of whether your application has been selected, before the 28th of February. So, if you have offers for other courses, I'm afraid you will need to be a little bit patient. Once the applications have been reviewed and we have a short list of people that we'll invite to interview, those will take place towards the end of March, early April, and they'll be held online. And we will absolutely bear in mind where you're based around the world when we try and schedule those interviews. You'll have an interview with 2 members of the core academic team, and everybody will be asked the same questions. And then conditional offers will be sent out from our admissions team towards the end of May, beginning of June 2025, with a view to around 60 students starting on the course in September of 2025. I think it's worth mentioning at this point, a few people have been asking in the chat, so how many applications are you expecting? What's the kind of conversion rate? What are my chances? So this is an incredibly popular course. We're very fortunate in that respect. Last year, we had around 1 successful applicant for every 5 applications we received. What that does mean is it's important to stress at this stage that we simply don't have the capacity to take every very able, excellent applicant that we receive. So unfortunately, it will be the case that a number of people will be disappointed. And it's often not that they did something wrong in their application or that their application, was lacking something. It may just be that there was somebody who was slightly better able to kind of explain what their motivation was. Or as Johnny pointed out, it may be that we want to make sure that we have a balanced cohort. And so that it may not be possible on that basis to offer everyone a place. So could we have the next slide, please? In terms of fees and funding, you can see on the screen now the home fees per year and the total fees over the 2 years and the overseas fees. If you are not sure whether you qualify for home or overseas status, then our mst.admissions email is there. You can ask the team for guidance. When it comes to payments, it's typically 4 equal fee payments per year. There is some flexibility on this. We'd ask for the first payment before the course starts. And it's important to bear in mind that the year 1 fees need to be paid in full before you progress to the year 2. We'd also like to stress that currently we don't have any bursaries or scholarships available from within ICE, and neither will the colleges that we work with have bursaries or scholarships prior to the course starting. So we would very much encourage you to investigate, explore what other options you might be able to identify outside of ICE or outside of the colleges. Can I have the next slide, please? If you would like support, it's there. You've got the QR code you can scan. Our enrolment team is there and very happy to provide information, advice, guidance. You can ask them a question at any point and they'll do their best to get back to you as soon as they can. So if you've got questions about selecting a course, whether do you meet the suitability, the requirements for the course, how do you go about applying and so on, you can use the QR code or you can email questions@ice.cam.ac.uk. Okay, can we take the next slide, please? So that brings us to the end of the presentation and onto the questions and answers section. I can see that a lot of questions have been flying, and we'll do our very best to answer as many as we can. Some of them we'll have to do through the written Q&A. So if I could invite our course reps, our student reps, and the academic team to come back onto camera, that will be fantastic. Jenny, I can see you've got your hand raised. Did you have something that you would like to say?
No, it was an accident, sorry.
Oh, okay, not a problem, not a problem. So the first question, and I'll see if anyone in the academic team would like to take this, is can a student with no background in computers or computing still take this course? And also, is it possible to go straight from an undergrad onto this course, or should I go off and get some work experience first?
I can take those and say, no, you do not need to have a background in computing. And yes, we welcome applications from people fresh out of undergrad. Some of our best students over the last few years have come straight out of undergrad. You have a slight advantage over those who have been out of academia for 20 years, but it neither hurts you or benefits you to be kind of nearer to that training, but the training itself will of course be beneficial in the long run.
Thank you very much. The next question's about support for students who've had a very long break or a substantial break since their last involvement with formal academic study. Garfield, perhaps you could talk to this. What support is available for students like myself who have been out of formal academic study for quite a while?
Yeah, I mean, as Ronnie said, some of our students do come straight from undergraduate, but the majority of students are not. They've been out in the world working, possibly for many years, and we do have students of all ages. So the course is designed to offer that support. We do that through a number of ways. Partly in the residentials, we have skills workshops, where you'll be working on writing skills, how to reference, how to conduct a literature review, both in terms of for each module and then leading on to the dissertation as well. Then we also have a variety of support throughout each term. We have writing clinics, often run by our teaching fellows or ourselves. You also have your advisor, who each term you'll have one group meeting and one individual meeting. And they're there to help you work through and work towards each assignment. And that includes things like selecting a topic, how to address it, how to find appropriate literature, and academic writing as well. Anything that you might be struggling with, it really can be tailored to what you need in those sessions. They're really quite in-depth, but in a very practical sense.
Fantastic, thank you. The next question is about the dissertation. Henry, I might ask if you could take this, please. There's two parts to this. The first is, can the dissertation proposal be connected to a subject matter directly related to my job or something that I'm doing in my job? And the second part is, can you give us a sort of rough idea of what sort of things people have covered in previous dissertations, broadly speaking?
Fantastic. Yeah, no, interesting questions. So in that's the first one. Absolutely. You would be following in the footsteps of many successful dissertations if you wrote about something directly relevant to your job. Just bear in mind that the dissertation is assessed as a piece of work written as a Cambridge interdisciplinary piece of writing. So if it's a technical report or something, that's not going to fit the bill. That said, within that genre of academic writing, you can absolutely focus on issues that are relevant to your career interests or specific issues at work. The only slight complication would be if you were dealing with proprietary information that you had access to from your job. That could raise some complications because all dissertations do have to be I think they form a central database. So that would be the only complication, but it's unlikely to arise. But yeah, so you can absolutely focus on writing a dissertation that is going to incorporate insights or challenges that you're keen to take on from your professional life. As for what students have written on, well, the kinds of dissertations that I've supervised, and I'd be interested to hear from Johnny. Garfield obviously just joined us quite recently, so hasn't had this experience yet. But Johnny, I'd be interested to hear from you. But some dissertations that students have worked on with me include the ethics of drone warfare, and specifically the ethics of the psychological impact on drone operators. I have students write about AI consciousness, which as a philosopher of cognitive science, is something that I'm very happy to work on. I've had students work on the whole robot rights debate. Could AI systems ever come to deserve moral consideration? Another student wrote a fantastic dissertation looking at whether large language models were the future of artificial intelligence and what their limitations are and what other sort of technologies might be coming down the pipeline. I've also had students write about social AI. This is something that is one of my key interests at the moment. AI girlfriends, boyfriends, AI companion apps. That's another really rich topic that we've tackled. Johnny, what are some of your favorite dissertations? Oh, wow. I won't sort of spoil the question. What are some dissertations that you've worked on in the past with students?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'll say generally that we have a pretty broad idea of what I mean. The course is called AI Ethics and Society. The term AI ethics is contested in what its kind of, what its boundaries are. Responsible AI, AI safety, critical AI, these things kind of are in the mix as well. So the dissertation phase gets broad. I've supervised a dissertation on sand reserves for microprocessors and the kind of the headwinds that climate are going to bring, literally and figuratively, to the kind of ambitions of AI in terms of the sand you need to make microprocessors. Looking at different frameworks for advertising for the major advertisers who fund, a lot of the social networks, thinking about the ethics of that, position. Recently, water reserves in Mexico for a gigafactory down there, which was going to be one of the biggest factories in the world. But also, geez, I mean, the Facebook timeline, that algorithm and its ability to dead name someone, without without an option to opt out. So yeah, we focus, and actually more recently too, looking at military matters and AI and a possible kind of fourth onset or offset strategy in the States. So it really runs the gamut. But that's one of the beautiful things about this course.
Thank you. That's fantastic. A question which I think I would like to ask Angie and Jenny today. Again, there's two parts to this. The first is, what have you found most challenging being on this course? And secondly, what sort of student peer support, have you kind of established or set up that's sort of separate from the formal teaching? Angie, would you like to go first, Angie? I think you're on mute. We can't hear you, so I'll tell you what, I'll ask Jenny to go first and perhaps you could see if you could resolve that. Jenny.
What was most challenging? I think when I joined the course, I hadn't been in academia for 20 years. So I think it was getting used to a lot of the new systems, a lot of the new technologies that are now in place and had to become accustomed to. So that was one thing. I think the structure of the course really supported me in that the first essay that you have to submit is only 2,000 words. And that really is designed to kind of give you that breathing space and be able to acclimatize yourself to getting back into the academic flow. And then once you're back in, I think you kind of find your feet quite quickly into going into the next term. So that was my experience. I think the other thing is just the time management, which is always going to be a struggle when you're a busy professional and you have different competing pressures. That's just something that needs to be managed on a weekly basis. And some weeks you're really busy, you may have like travel, you may have big work events, and other weeks, you know, you can catch up. So there is a certain amount of flexibility that allows you to do that because everything's online.
Is it working now?
It is loud and clear. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. Jenny, are you finished?
Yeah.
Cool. I think for me, the most challenging thing, and I saw the question come in and I was reflecting on it. I think I came from a social science background, and coming into a space that is largely humanities was like, we don't need to write in the third person. What novelty is this? And I remember speaking to Johnny about this in the beginning, and then Henry, who's my advisor, was like, surely we can't use the first person or we, like this is what this is just bizarre. So that was the first thing, was finding a new voice, and that things don't have to be empirical, because, you know, coming from social sciences, if you're not writing about a study you've done, and how would you possibly write a dissertation when you aren't writing about an empirical study, was just like, it just felt bizarre. So that was the challenge that I grappled with, and then finding a new voice was quite liberating and exciting. And I remember at one point Johnny saying, well, you could write as a social science type voice. I was like, no, I'm resisting that. I'm going to find a new voice. And that was actually really exciting when I did that. In terms of the second part of your question, what other sort of structures, we, and a group of us, found a really good buddy system where we would read for each other and provide really robust feedback, I would say, for each other in terms of our essays. And I think that was very helpful along the way, because we never wrote on the same essays. So that was always useful. And I think that's been a very helpful tool and support structure for ourselves.
Thank you, Angie. That's fantastic. I'm conscious of time, so we may only be able to live respond to a couple more questions, but I know that our enrolments team will try and answer everybody by email. So the next question, I think, is probably best for Garfield. Garfield, if I could ask you to consider this one. Would you be open to an application for someone who is interested in knowledge for knowledge's sake, if the applicant can show sufficient interest in the field and motivation for that? Or are we basically looking for applications with a very specific work-related purpose?
I think, as Johnny has already mentioned, we are interested in a whole range of applicants. Some in the past have been retired and are doing it just out of interest. Others have a very specific way that it fits into their current job. Others are using it to do a career change. But there's a whole range of different motivations of people coming in, and we don't necessarily prioritize one over the other. It's about making a case for your place on the course.
Fantastic. And I think one final question, and I think Johnny and Henry, as you've had a long established involvement with this course, this is about what people have gone on to do. So it's a very, very broad question. What have people gone on to do, and how have they used this MST?
Yeah, so I'll start, and Johnny, if you have any other insights, please, I'd love to hear from you as well. So a huge range of things. So as noted, some people have gone on to do, some people come in with primarily academic interests and have used this as a stepping stone to an academic career. One of my one of my students who I supervised a dissertation of last year has now started a PhD here in Cambridge. Others have gone on to found their own companies. There are a number of startups that came out of this program. Others have used it to gain greater skills to pursue promotions in their existing institutions. So one student who worked in finance, for example, has now specifically specialized in AI in finance on the back of this course within their existing organization. Other students have been so excited by AI that they've moved into entirely AI-based industries. So one student who was working in business was very interested in AI, use this to switch roles entirely to a different area of project management in the AI space in general. So we've seen a huge number of different stories. And I should mention that some of the businesses that have been founded on the back of this, this was groups of students who met on the course, identified that they had common interests and common skills, and founded companies together. I think we're on 3 or 4 now. So, Johnny, any big gaps that I've missed?
No, there was some interest in understanding how this MST sits alongside the MPhil that maybe you could speak to very briefly, because I know that will be of interest to a number of people. I'm going to try and speed run a couple, Jonathan, forgive me, a couple things that are still lingering about choosing a reference. As has been mentioned, academic references are preferred but not mandatory. And references that can speak to your kind of intellectual character ultimately are what we appreciate. Your strengths, even, that can grapple with your weaknesses too, and be kind of give us an awareness of what you would be coming to this program to gain. There was a question about whether this course could be done kind of full-time, even if it's a half-time course. Some people do that. We don't necessarily encourage it because it's built for full-time professionals, but you are working professionals, but you are, it does happen. There's questions about, if working in military AI already, is this the best place to do it? And I think, as has been profiled in the session tonight, we're really proud of this program. We think we offer a very unique, multidisciplinary kind of set of perspectives on AI ethics. And one of the joys of being at the University of Cambridge, in my experience, is that you can make it what you want. So I kind of want to put that question back to the asker or askers and say, do you feel like multidisciplinary perspectives will help you get further on that journey that you want to take there? And there was a question about US time zones. A lot of the students that we have are in the US. So even if we don't have, I think they were asking about support on the ground, even if we don't have, offices in Boston or something, there's still participants from all over the globe. Okay, that's my speed run of a couple things. Henry, do you want to try just briefly speaking to the MPhil MSTP?
Yeah, with pleasure. So, as many of you know, CFI also offers an MPhil, which is sort of the speedrun version of the MST. It happens over 9 months, full time. The intake for the MPhil in general skews more towards people coming off undergraduate degrees or master's degrees who want to continue in full-time education. There's a lot of overlap between the two courses. I think in terms of the amount of total content you get, it's not the case that the MST has less content. If anything, probably slightly more, because you have more time to work on your dissertation. You have the benefit of 4 intensive residential weeks and the 4 terms. But many of the same instructors teach on both courses. But yeah, the MPhil sort of crams into 9 months what the MST delivers over 2 years.
Fantastic. I'm afraid we are out of time. So it just remains for me to say a huge thank you to our current students, Angie and Jenny, for joining us. A thank you to the academic team, Garfield, Jenny and Henry. Thank you to everyone in the background from ICE who's been supporting this event tonight. Thank you everyone for joining us. We hope that you found this informative, and we look forward to receiving your applications. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks all.